Hello and welcome to the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast with me, Clive Barber, and my good mate, Noel Tom. For the days when you can't ride your bike, there's always the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast. Well, we've got another exciting one for you this week. Quite excited about this one. Something a little bit different. We're going to be welcoming a chap called David Goldman. David Goldman is a photographer who's currently doing a project. He's travelled throughout US and Canada and is now due to be starting his trip through Europe very soon. And he's doing a series of motorcycle portraits. He's got a project called themotorcycleportraits.net, which is a long-term multimedia portrait series where he features individuals whose lives are deeply connected to motorcycles. They can be racers, builders, collectors, world travellers, or podcasters. I just added that last bit in shits and giggles. David joins us from his home in Nova Scotia in Canada, literally days before he jumps on an aeroplane and flies to Dublin to start his trip through Europe. At some point during the recording, David had to take delivery of his motorcycle back from the repair shop. So there's a stint early on where me and Noel just chat for about 10 minutes. So I don't know, thought we'd leave it in. You can hear what we've been up to recently. Anyway, I strongly recommend you go and have a look at themotorcycleportraits.net and check out some of the pictures on there. There's some fantastic pictures of some motorcycling legends. And on each of the pictures, there's also an audio file so you can listen to the people in the pictures talk about their motorcycling life. It's a fascinating project. I think everybody that listens to this will enjoy it. Right, let's get on with it. It's great that you could join us. Really excited about this one because whilst I'm not much of a photographer, Noel's very good.
I'm an amazing photographer.
Even if he does say so himself.
Self-praise is no praise, somebody once told me. But I do need some tips. We'll get onto that later.
Maybe we'll do a bit of that. And also, I listened to this Motorcycle Life podcast you did a good while ago. Sounds like it was about a year ago.
Super nice guy and really pushed me.
They were fucking hard questions.
They were hard. It was like I didn't know there'd be a quiz.
Yeah, because it's like all quite philosophical. I loved his ending. It's a really enjoyable podcast, and I loved his ending. He got very, very philosophical, but he was asking you questions, and you were like, I don't know.
Because he was asking me these questions in a very artsy way. Almost like when you walk into an art gallery or a museum or whatever, and there'll be like an artist statement, or there'll be a statement about the artist, and I always look at those and I'm like, that's fucking bullshit. I mean, come on. It's so wordy and it's so that. But it really kind of forced me to be a little bit more introspective on, there is obviously reasons why I do things and why I'm motivated and what drives me. It's not just totally arbitrary. But as you can tell from that podcast, I don't spend a lot of time in that type of introspection. I think I'm very self-aware, but I don't spend a lot of time with that. So I actually appreciated the road we went down. I wasn't prepared for it, but I appreciated it. And I think it was a good exercise. Even as a creative person, I think it was a good exercise to kind of go down that road.
It was really interesting. And there's a couple of those topics I'd like to explore a bit later on anyway. Sort of why do we enjoy motorcycling? And he tried to get some of that out of you. And I think that would be interesting. Why does anybody find these pictures interesting and all that kind of stuff? So that's great. But on this podcast, you're more likely to get lots of cuss words and lots of knob jokes.
I don't know if you've seen this. Not too many people have. That's how big my YouTube channel is. It's got 11 people. I did the Trans-Labrador Highway, and I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a pretty gnarly highway. You can Google it. And for eternity, it was completely unpaved. And basically, you cross from Newfoundland into Labrador, and then you go from Labrador into Quebec. And it's about a 3-day trip, and it's all unpaved, and it's logging roads. And the fucking logging trucks go by you just crazy fast, blowing up all kinds of smoke. And so I'm riding, and you get this sign that says, okay, next fuel. I really had to do the math on my bike. I was like, okay, my fuel tank is this, my auxiliary tank is this, my little red can is this. I know, really had to figure it out. Anyway, I'm just about to start. I turn on the send a video thing, and I got Tom Petty playing too loud. and I start, and I'm like, oh fuck. And I'm kind of riding like this, like it's like I'm standing up, and it's like kind of I'm on ice, you know? And then this truck just goes fucking whizzing by me, and I'm like, holy fuck, that guy's not slowing down at all. What the fuck? I'm just totally covered in dust. I can't see. And the comments are like to the effect of like, this guy swears a lot. Like any normal. So I definitely have a foul mouth.
Welcome to the Trail and Adventure.
And I was already going to make a joke about the tip. I'm like, well, I'm circumcised, so I can't really help you with that. So that's already how my brain's working. So I think I'll be okay with you guys.
I think you'll fit in well. So listen, we should get into this really. We normally record for about an hour and a half. David, if that's all right with you.
It's totally okay with me. There is a slight possibility we may have to pause because I took my motorcycle up to Halifax to get serviced yesterday and they weren't able to finish it. But in a miracle of miracles, they're actually delivering it to me today. And I'm an hour and a half south. They had to drop somebody else's bike off. They're like, hey, we can bring your bike. I'm like, that's amazing. So it's possible it could come in this hour and a half, in which case I'll say, give me 15 minutes, I'll grab the bike and then I'll be back. That's my only caveat.
Not a problem at all, yeah. And I heavily edit the podcast, so that hour and a half will probably go down to something like 50 minutes or something like that.
You'll take out all my deep philosophical questions.
Fuck philosophy. Knob jokes, that's what we want.
I think he's actually here now.
Hey!
No, the dog's just barking for no reason.
Oh.
Hold on, wait, sorry. Yeah, hold on.
This is podcast gold right here.
He must be shipping his bike over to Ireland to start his next trip. He's obviously had I think he's got a KTM 790.
The guy's here now. He's literally got the van at the end of the street. He says 5 minutes. Do you want me to call you back in 5 minutes and then we're totally uninterrupted?
Just keep it live and open. Doesn't matter. And then we'll get back into it when you get back. Yeah.
I mean, actually, it's better that he's here right now and get it over with.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel absolutely frazzled.
Why?
Because every minute of this week is taken up with sorting stuff out, catching up with work, getting that bike ready for next week, dropping things off, picking things up. That was just in pieces when I got back, really. It was just an engine and a frame, really.
You don't have to take that one. You could have gone on your CRF.
No, because I need something to keep up with the big boys.
Do you know what? I'm taking my...
You're taking your CRF?
Yeah, and the 1050's got no MOT on it.
For all the turning around that will be going on, you'll be really thankful of it. Imagine if every time you turn it will make a pain, wouldn't it, on a big bike? And once we got on the little single track roads...
No, exactly right. See, the thing is, it's fine up to like 60, 70 anyway. And we ain't going to be going a lot. It's not as if we're going to be cruising at 90 beyond day one, is it? Because even if we go on the motorway up to Glasgow or whatever, I think it'll be fine.
If I'd had more road-orientated tyres on the CRF, I probably would have taken that, but it's just so knobbly up at the moment. And I haven't done anything on that red one for ages, so it'd just be nice to... And that's what I want to keep it for now, it's just this kind of trip. But I just rode it tonight. Man, it's hard work. It's, because it's just... It's such a beast to ride. It's not... I'll get used to it. If it doesn't break down, I'll come back thinking it's my favourite bike, but just riding it along the lane now, just like, oh, crikey. This for a week.
It's almost traditional that something's got to go wrong with it. I adjusted my clutch on my CRF. The thing was really wobbly and I over adjusted it. So I went out, it must have been with the guys on Sunday with Ed and Mav. And it was just spinning up at high revs. I'm going, fuck. I hope and I thought, no, hang on a minute. I adjusted it. I've over adjusted it. So I just let it off. But it still seems, I don't know, I'm a little slight level of concern about my clutch.
But you've got some free play.
Yeah.
On the lever. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's fine then, isn't it?
It's only got 4,000 miles on it, unless they are a weak clutch, but it works fine now.
Yeah, it's not been abused, has it?
No, not at all. Do you know, it does amaze me, though. You rev the knackers off it, and it still gives you 85 miles per gallon.
Yeah, it's just incredible, isn't it? The fuel prices in Spain were very cheap, probably about 130 euros a litre or something. But you'd ride all day, and then you put like 6 or 7 euros in, or just nothing. It just didn't compute that. Oh, we did all that for that. That's just madness. And you never have to think, like Mick has he's putting a service tank on, so he's got a big tank like me. But he said it's very strange for him to be riding without thinking about fuel. You can't use all the fuel in that tank in a day trail riding, really.
Well, I used about 9 quid's worth on Sunday, and we did that loop in the Lake District. I've probably taken that you might have come on with me. It's just a big loop, just the cul-de-sac and all the way down south, down to the car museum. And then we rode up to the Old Coach Road, rode across that, and then rode all the way back to mine again. So it's I think it was about 140 miles or something like that. Ed's really, really nice bloke as well.
Biker Ed, he sounded great on the podcast.
He was really good, wasn't he?
Yeah, really lovely. Yeah.
And Seats was brilliant as well. They were both really on it, weren't they? I was delighted with that.
Yeah, they really were good.
At the time I was thinking, Jesus, these guys are perfect. And a really easy edit as well, again, which is all I care about these days.
Do you recognise the ums and the ers in the graph?
Yeah, you can see them in the breath. Difference between that and a breath mark. And you can almost automatically go in and just take them all out. Occasionally get it wrong. You might take an S, sort of a soldier's, and you take the Z out at the end and you have to put it back in, but it's dead easy to do. Brett Anderson introduced me to David, because Brett was one of the people that had his pictures taken. I don't know if David's kept up to date with what's going on with Brett. We'll have a chat about that as well.
Amazing how he's up and about again, isn't it?
Yeah. But did you look at some of David's pictures?
Yes, I did, yeah.
Amazing. I go, I love it. Kevin Schwantz.
Amazing who's who list.
And he's flying into Ireland, Dublin, I think, on the 1st of June.
Is he?
Coming over to Scotland.
Yeah.
I think he's going to ferry to Scotland, and then he's coming down, stay with us. So we get to meet him and everything.
Oh, great. I got back on Sunday night.
Amazing pictures. Was it pretty much the same route that we did before?
No, it started where we stopped.
Right.
At Pont de Surt. Do you remember when we had the last cup of tea together and then I went in one way and you went in the other? That was Pont de Surt. And we stayed just outside that town, but we did some new stuff, a bit of ACT and a bit of stuff that Julian had found. And then we arrived in Pont de Surt that night. After that, it was all new stuff over to Andorra, then in Malina. So it was all stuff we hadn't done before. I mean, I always say this, and it's going to really be annoying for me to say this, but all the good stuff, all the really good stuff starts just where we stop.
And it was good enough where we were, to be honest. So
yeah, but that's when it starts to get high and dramatic, and every day was just stunning. You know, that last track we did that everyone raved about, everything was just a little bit better than that.
Wow.
So the drive down as well, absolute doddle. God, it just felt like, I felt in the end like I'd just driven to Kent rather than driven to Spain.
You went across in the Channel Tunnel?
Stopped just around, about halfway down.
Halfway down France. So one night before the ferry, or just drove down onto the ferry?
We set off early. We set off at about 5 o'clock in the morning. Probably got the ferry at about 11 or 12. And then drove halfway through France on the first day. So between setting off here, got to halfway through France in the same day, and stopped at about 6 o'clock at night. So 12-hour day. Have they brought the right bike?
All working.
They brought the right bike.
Hey.
Installed, the Carpe Eater thingy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they installed it upside down. So I was like, dude, fucking make sure you read the instructions very clearly, whatever. And immediately I saw that the wire, like the power wire, which is meant to be on the bottom right, is on the top left. I should be easy enough to swap the thingy, but I also very quickly saw, and this, whatever, like the little thumb control wasn't, I don't know, whatever, fuck.
It's always annoying when people have got a 50% chance of getting it right. Not like loads of options, just 50%
Just 50.
chance.
But I'm getting close to takeoff, so I want this shit done.
Yeah, well, that's going to be my next question, really. So how's the planning going for you to arrive in Dublin?
Yeah, in Dublin on the 2nd, I think. So next week.
Does the bike go on the same plane?
Yeah, so I'm working with WestJet, which is a Canadian airline. Maybe you know that Air Canada used to run this sort of fly your bike thing. Well, the guy that used to run the Air Canada thing, he's moved to WestJet, and he's sort of running the whole program. So I've been working with them. Basically what happens is, so I'm on the East Coast, I'm in Nova Scotia. The Calgary is WestJet's hub. So they'll fly all over the country, Vancouver, Montreal, Toronto, whatever, and then they'll fly you and your bike. You got to get to Calgary is the bottom line. And then from Calgary, they have their, what do they call it? Their wide body jets that fly international to Paris, to London, to Dublin, I think to Amsterdam, and maybe Barcelona. I'm not 100% sure. I can't remember. So basically, they run the bike cargo from Halifax to Calgary. I run commercial from Halifax to Calgary. Then we're both on the same plane from Calgary and fly to Dublin.
Wow.
That's got to be a great feeling, hasn't it? Having the bike on the same plane.
Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah. But it's been a lot of planning, and it's been, what do you call, I already forget the term, but when people can't stay focused and they need the medication, what is it called? There's like a couple
ADHD?
ADHD, yeah. So I don't have ADHD, but these last 2 weeks, I very
dementia.
much
You've got dementia. That's something quite different.
There's no question. I have early onset dementia. But so it's been very stressful to stay organized and stay focused with the myriad things that I've needed to do to get this thing going. These are all first world problems.
I guess before we go any further, we should get you to tell everybody who you are and a little bit about the project that you've been working on. I guess you're into your second year and your second trip of part of the project. This
is, I would say, the third trip. The first was a proof of concept. The second was a full around the US and Canada, and this will be the third one. So my name's David Goldman. I'm an award-winning documentary and portrait photographer. I'm originally from Toronto. I've lived in New York and LA for 25, 26 years. And a year ago, I moved back to Canada, to Nova Scotia, where I've never lived before. I've been working on a series called the Motorcycle Portraits, which is a long-term multimedia portrait series where I use audio, GPS, and stills to feature individuals who I describe as people whose lives are deeply connected to motorcycles. So builders, racers, collectors, and world travelers. I try to identify people, men, women, black, white, straight, gay, young, old. I want to show the inclusiveness of motorcycling. I want to kind of identify more of an esoteric side of motorcycling. And I've been very lucky. I've photographed to date 107 people in the United States, Canada, and India. High-end people from Giacomo Agostini and Wayne Rainey and Kevin Schwantz, to Lyle Lovett and Jack Penton, and myriad people in between, you know, people I meet on the road, people I chase on Instagram, and people that a current subject suggests a next subject. And that's what I've been doing. I guess I kind of started in 2018 with no idea that I would be still doing this. I just sort of had this idea to pitch a story to Honda and see if they'd give me a Honda Africa Twin so I could travel around the world. Like, sure, why not? It looked like they were going to give it to me. And then when they didn't, I just kept kind of shooting, and COVID happened, and I used it as just something to do to get off the couch from eating ice cream. And it's kind of grown, and now I'm about to take the bike overseas, which is bonkers to me.
Have you always been a portrait photographer?
I've always been a portrait photographer. I started in the music world. I'm kind of famous. I'm not famous. I did the Blink-182 album cover with the girl with the glove. So people know that. That's definitely the most recognizable piece of work that I've done. But I've shot lots of bands like the Flaming Lips and Muse and REM and Joss Stone and all that kind of stuff. That was when I was living in LA. And then I moved to New York, and I really switched my discipline to more documentary work. And I do work for UN Women and for the New York Times and Globe and Mail in Canada. And I do work about human rights and maternal health and human trafficking, marginalized people, like in India and Cambodia and Bangladesh and Northern Territory of Australia. So that I really call myself more of a documentary photographer, but portraiture is always been, you know, my thing. I remember I was in London and I went to the National Portrait Museum, and I just thought, this is home. This is the place.
I got a question for Noel. What do you think of Blink-182 and their genre of music, Noel?
Amazing. The second album, the tricky second album, I wasn't sure about at first, but it grew on me in time. But yeah, the Blinks are just one of my all-time.
He's never fucking heard of them.
Of course I have.
Yeah.
When I think one of the guys left the band, I think they had to change it to Blink-181. So a lot of people don't know that. The show must go on, right? So
obviously you're a photographer first and foremost, but you're also a biker, which is why you're doing this project. Tell us a little bit about your biking history, what you've got in the garage, what's just recently arrived in the garage.
Like I said, I grew up in Toronto, just middle class family. But I asked my mom if she would buy me a car when I turned 16, and she was like, no way. I was like, well, I can't get to school on the bus. It's going to take too long, whatever. And I said, well, I'm going to get a motorcycle. She's like, you're not getting a motorcycle. She kind of freaked out. And I was like, I am going to get a motorcycle. And it was my mom and I were like this, like Battle of the Wills. So I took a motorcycle course. I ended up buying a bike. This was 1986. And I bought a used, I don't remember what year it was. It was a Suzuki GS 550 ES, I think so. And it was a long weekend in Toronto. And my mom drove me downtown to pick up this bike from this guy. She followed me home. And I got home, and basically all weekend long, the bike was crapping out on me. And I'm like 16, so I'm not really developed. And I'm pushing the bike in my leathers and my jeans, and I'm sweating, and I'm dropping the fucking thing. And anyway, all weekend long, there was a guy that lived on my street, and he had a bike. So I asked him if he could help, maybe figure out what was going on. And anyway, bottom line is my mom said, on Tuesday, at the end of the long weekend, we're taking this bike back to this guy. He's going to give you your money back, and I'll pay for insurance for a car, and you can use the $1,500 or whatever the bike costs to buy a car. So I bought a 78 Honda Accord that looked like it had been shot with rust bullets. It was just like riddled with rust holes. I didn't have a bike again until 10 or 11 years ago. I rented a few times. I rented in Spain and I rented in California, but I hadn't owned one. And I had a buddy from who I went to college with, and he had a CB400F Supersport, a 75. And I would always be, Rick, were you going to sell me that bike? And no. And whatever reason, he said yes this time. And I was living in Brooklyn. So I bought the bike and I rode the bike to Brooklyn. And I had that bike for, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years, but I loved it. And everybody would see it and go, oh, that was my first bike. I love that bike, all the old guys. But a friend of mine had a 2004 Triumph Thruxton that he had bought and had barely ridden it, had 2,400 miles on it. Basically, he sold it for me for the same price that I sold the CB for. And then I had the Thruxton for a long time. I moved back to Toronto with the Thruxton, moved back to California with the Thruxton. And then when I wanted to kick off this project, I was like, as much as I'd love to hang on to the Thruxton, and I really wish I still had it in the garage, I sold it and I bought a 2019 KTM 790 Adventure. And that's my bike. So I bought it in the summer of 20, and it has 38,000 miles on it now in like 3 years of riding, I guess.
Wow, that's good. I love that story of bikes. Is the 404 my dad had. And in 1977, when I was 12, we toured Europe, and I was on the back of that bike with him.
Oh, wow.
I'm from Coventry, which is the home of Triumph, and I do like the Thruxton.
Yeah, it was cool. It was the last carbureted one, so it was just, and it was loud. Fuck, it was loud. I had some pipe on it that like set off the alarms and everything.
We've never heard of a parent who welcomed the news that their child wanted a motorcycle. All parents have always been. Oh, was your dad for it?
Yeah, they bought me one when I was 12. I was utterly obsessed with motorcycles. I had all of my walls in my bedroom were all covered in photographs of motorcycles. We used to go to the bike show, and I'd get pamphlets and stickers and everything. I could tell in 1975. I could tell what every single motorbike was by the sound it made. I go, yeah, FS1E, that's RD400. I'd know. I could do it.
And you were a little kid at that time, right?
Exactly. Yeah, completely obsessed. And they bought me a bike.
So they bought you, and what happened?
I went and raced it.
Oh, I thought you had a terrible accident.
Yeah, that was on my third bike, and we've Series 1, Episode 1. I think we covered that one in. Yeah. I'm not going there. David will think I'm an idiot. I'm not going down that route again. I crashed into a parked car, David.
Nice.
Shit happens.
Well, why would he park right
exactly.
there? Why would he park right there?
Better place. It wasn't a car park. Thankfully, that would have been worse.
There hasn't been much riding up until the KTM. There was no riding on gravel.
I mean, a couple of times I'd gone out, but definitely not in any legitimate way. And when I got the KTM, I said I did this proof of concept. So it was the first summer of COVID. I guess that was 20. I was like, fuck, I got to do a ride. So I got the bike and I went into Northern California. And I went up into Oregon and Washington and Wyoming and Montana and Utah and Nevada and whatever. But anyway, when I went up into California, Northern California, and then I've been on the highway and I'm like, I don't really want to be on these highways, even though PCH, like Pacific Coast Highway, is beautiful in Northern California. Everybody does it. I went around this town called Eureka. I just was looking at the map and I was like, oh, it looks like there's kind of like a cool road. I didn't know if it was gravel, I didn't know what it was. But I knew it was off the main highway, so I just hung a right, and I went up, and it took me up to the end of the road, and then it was gravel, and I thought, well, fuck, I mean, I've got this bike, right? It wasn't like, it was more like a like a dirt road. It wasn't like super complex, but I'd never even been on a dirt road really on that bike. It is loaded with the panniers and everything. And I thought, oh, fuck, I'll just go. And I rode, and then I was on the, what do you call it? The top of the mountain running along the edge. And it basically, what I think it did is it took me between California and Oregon, and then it connected me with another road, which was in Oregon, and then down through these beautiful, like just made for motorcycle ribbon of asphalt through the trees. And I was like, this is ridiculous. And then I was in Washington, and I met up with some of the Moscow Moto guys, and Spencer's like, he's the gear dude. And Spencer's like, oh man, come meet us here. We're going to do this ride. I'm like, okay, I'm not really good. I don't really know what I'm doing. And he's like, no worries, man. And him and this other guy, Seth, who has this off-road motorcycle rental, Utah Adventure Rentals, I think they're called. I hope that's what they're called. But anyway, those two guys were together, and I just followed them, and they're like, all right, let's go up this road. And next thing, I'm going up a fucking mountain that was really like that super soft, like sand, not even like dust, you know? And I'm just like, Mom! The fucking like a rally trying to just go up. And eventually, like I got really close to Spencer, and I kind of let go, and then I dropped the bike. But Seth is like, I'm not a big guy, I'm 5'7", and Seth is like 6 something. He's like, he fucking lifts it up, and he just drives it up. But they gave me the confidence to do it, you know, like where I would have never done it on my own. They gave me the confidence and the support to make me feel like, don't worry, we got you. And that's been the community that I've met in the motorcycling world, which is awesome.
Did you enjoy riding off-road straight away, or did it seem a little bit crazy?
No, I loved it. I was super into it. I just thought like, fuck, I'll just do it. Like I went to car racing school. I wanted to be a race car driver. So I'm very confident in car. I'm very unconfident on the road on a motorcycle. Like I'm not ripping around. I'm kind of always slow. They make fun that like cars pass me sometimes. But on the dirt, like, not that I go so fast because I don't, but I'm not afraid to try. Like I'll go, I'll do it, whatever.
Tell us a little bit more about the how the trip's working out for you and how you're arranging to meet up with people, and how does that work? Are you arranging things on the go, or have you got a plan before you leave?
Basically, I moved to Nova Scotia a year and a half ago. And I kind of wanted to do this trip, but I thought, you know what, this is an old house. I need to fix it up. I just thought I'll work on the house. I'll get it sorted. And I just sort of put it in my head. I want to try to do this next summer, being this summer. And I just started to reach out, you know, connected with WestJet, like I was saying. I connected with the ABR Festival. I don't even know how I found out about them, but I'm going to be speaking there and showing like 26 pictures or something. And then I've just been reaching out to different subjects that I want to get to, and connections that I have. And to be honest, there's a lot of people at the ABR that I hope to get. Like, you know, I want to get Lyndon Poskett, and I want to get Elspeth Beard, and you know, there's like a bunch of people there. To be honest, if I got all the people that I wanted to get there, maybe I'd just go to the south of France and kick my heels up for a while, because it's like a pretty good collection. But I don't think I'll be able to get them all actually there. You know, there's been people I've been trying to get to. I would say that the vast majority of the people that I reach out to, whether it's because they see already whom I photographed, or they read the pitch that I write, generally they say yes. Like almost nobody says no. Occasionally people say no. Like Bruce Springsteen said no, but I'll get him eventually. But there are some people that haven't been as receptive in the UK. And I don't know if they think I'm an American, or they're busy, or they don't understand, or they're not reading. Like, I don't know what the logic is, because sometimes they'll be like, oh yeah, we'd be really interested. And then they just ghost me. So that's not happening a lot, but it's happening a little bit. And I'm a little bit like miffed by it. So I'm not sure, like, but whatever. Like, I will say about this project, I've had a small amount of support from brands. I've had brand support with gear. No shame in saying that. But money is not something I've come by easily. So this is a predominantly self-funded project. If I write an article, then maybe I'll get a few bucks for the article, or if it's published somewhere. But for the most part, this is a self-funded project. So I'm not in the pocket of too many people. Nobody tells me what to do, where to go, how it works. So, which, as a commercial photographer, that's like, I have to. People are always telling me what to do, what they want, how they want it. So what I love about this series is, like, nobody tells me what to do. I shoot who I want when I want. And so if somebody says, if somebody doesn't respond or they turn me down, I'm like, I don't give a shit. I'm not going to take that personally. It's whatever. Like I've had, it's about the experiences I have and the people I meet. And if you're not into it, you're not into it. Like, I don't care.
I do. I take it really fucking personally if people don't respond to me. Yeah, I like the people that respond and say no. I like those. We've had a few of those, but really kind. At least they take the effort.
Yeah, but to get totally ghosted, you want to show up on their door.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
But at some point, round a campfire, you've got to give us some names of these people. But what are your hopes for this collection?
Right
what are you hoping to do with this collection of portraits?
Well, at the beginning, I had no real plan because I didn't imagine that it would get to the size that it's gotten. I would like to make a book, but I'm also realistic to know that the publishing world, it's not what it once was. I look at these pictures and I'm like, yeah, these are really cool. I know that the community seems to like it and are interested in the people and the stories. But I'm also, there's a part of me that goes, honestly, who the fuck's going to buy this book? Is it, like the mother and father of the subject? Are enough people going to buy this book to warrant a publisher to publish it? I'm personally not convinced, and I don't know if I can't be convinced if a publisher is, but I'm not a publisher. There's things I don't know. I do think that if I get a Keanu Reeves, if I get a Bruce Springsteen, if I get these sort of big ticket item people, there's a greater chance a publisher would be interested to support. So in a way, I'm not giving up to attempt to get those people. So we'll see. At the very least, it's the website. It's got a dedicated website where you can see all the photos, you can hear all the audio. To me, the power of this project is the audio. When you listen to the stories that the subjects tell, and not all of them certainly, but many of them are very emotional stories of their connectedness to motorcycles, how it's empowered them, how it's made them feel alive, or just like a lot of things there's the obvious, the freedom and stuff, but there are deeper stories that are told Lyle Lovett tells a beautiful story about how when he was a little kid, his dad would take him for a ride and he would hold on to his dad and it made him feel close to his dad. And like, that's a beautiful moment. And it's also like, men don't often talk like that. So it's nice to hear that, I didn't have a relationship with my dad. And when I hear that kind of story, it's like, that's pretty awesome, So, I'm always, when I ask somebody to tell the story, they're like, well, what do you want me to tell? And I'm like, no big deal. Just try to make somebody cry.
We get quite a lot of people telling us their kind of the first discovery of motorcycling. Everybody seems to have a story about the first time on a bike and they just knew, right, that's the rest of my life sorted out. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to be. And we had an Australian guy on, David Darcy, a few weeks ago, and he went, first time I rode a bike, it was like getting shot up the arse by a rainbow.
Yeah, mate. Yeah.
I absolutely love that. But it's true. Everybody's got a similar sort of story to that as to when they first got on a bike and realised that's the rest of your life sorted out. So what came first with this idea then? The idea to do this photography project, or was it how can I justify my travelling around the world on a motorcycle?
I will say that I don't have aspirations. I don't see myself as a round the world person. I don't think I would in one go. Let me put it that way. I don't think I would be like, well, I'm fucking off for 2 years or whatever it takes to ride around the world. Honestly, I think I'm too old to want to do that. I have a dog at home and like there's things that I care about. I don't want to leave for that amount of time. But I would do the world broken up in bits. Like I would do, for 3 months here and 4 months there. That being said, I don't really aspire to go around the world. It just, but I didn't aspire necessarily to go to Europe either, or go around the US and Canada. So I don't know. But what came first was this idea that like pitching it to Honda. And I thought, I don't know, maybe they'll give me a bike. I was kind of referencing the You Meet the Nicest People on a Honda advert. And I thought at the time it was going to be the 60th anniversary of that ad. And I thought, maybe I'll take some of the technology with GPS and audio that I had been leveraging in the documentary work that I had been doing and see if it translates. I was struck by, when I was in India, how motorcycles are used as a utilitarian tool, how a father can get his kids to school, get an education, and attempt to extricate themselves from poverty, right? In the developed country, first world countries, it's a luxury item, right? Goof around, you have a bunch of bikes, like the guys get together and they build something. But I wanted to show something more. I wanted to show how perhaps a woman gets out of an abusive relationship and finds her identity and rides around the world, or, like whatever it is. So, and because Honda is such a huge manufacturer, they get their hands everywhere. Their bikes are everywhere, whether they're like little putt-putts in Indonesia or gold wings in the States, right? So they seem like a logical target for me. But when it didn't work out, I just kind of kept shooting. Well, when I was somewhere, if I'm in India, I'm like, oh, I'm going to call up Vijay from Rajputana Motorcycles, because I'd seen them. I'm like, these are cool. Maybe he'd be down with talking to me. Or Bobby Singh from Old Delhi Motorcycles, and maybe he'd be down with talking to me. And that's kind of how it happened. And then it was kind of like a side hustle, And I really think because COVID happened, it allowed me the freedom and the time to really expand the series. And there are a lot of great photographers that are riding bikes, and there are a lot of great content creators who are traveling around the world or whatever. But I don't know anybody that's a good photographer that's doing portraits, that's using their bike as a mobile photo studio, which I think is kind of a neat thing.
Did Honda get it at all?
In the meeting, they totally got it. I walked in from the back door. Like I got a introduction to the marketing department through a connection. And I honestly thought I was meeting one guy in a room. And I went to their head offices in Torrance, and I met the guy, and he's like, okay, we're going to go up to the conference room where the marketing department is. And I was like, the marketing department, the conference room, what the fuck? And there was like the whole team there, all these guys. And I luckily had done one photo in Toronto of a guy that had an Africa twin. And he told this great story. He's like, when I was a kid, I went to the motorcycle show with my dad, and I was like, oh, Dad, I want that one. And he's like, no. And the kid's like, ah, fuck. And then come Christmas time, there was a Christmas tree, and there was a string that kind of wound through the house, out the door, into the garage, and there was like a little CR80 or something. Since then, he's collects all kinds of bikes, but he has Hondas, and he just happens to say that he's like, oh, I've had hundreds of bikes, but like Hondas are amazing bikes. They last forever. I was like, I didn't even ask the guy to say that. So I showed that picture, and they're all like, this is really great. This is amazing. Would you be interested in taking a Road King or a Goldwing? And I'm like, well, I don't think I could pick up a Goldwing if I drop it in Africa, but if you want to give me a bike, I'll take whatever you give me, and I'll do whatever I can. So I rolled out of that meeting, like I floated out of that meeting. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, oh my God, I think you're going to do it. I don't know what, I think you're going to do it.
Yeah.
But then they kind of ghosted me, and nothing happened. And I don't know if that's because I skipped the marketing department or like the ad agency or pissed somebody off or whatever. It doesn't matter. But they were nice to me. It gave me the clarity to see the value of the project, to just go off and do it on my own.
One thing I've always been fairly obsessed with is the tribes you get within motorcycling. So you got the sports bike guys, you got the racer guys, you got the motocross guys, you got the adventure guys, you got the trials guys. There's so many different genres.
Worlds within worlds, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I describe it like you have this umbrella, and you have all these verticals within that umbrella, and you got your builders, you got your collectors, you got your racers, on the road, you got your racers on the dirt, you got your race, you know what I mean? Like, you obviously know what I mean.
The nice thing is, as bikers, and I've only ever met one, he wasn't even a biker, he had a motorbike, I didn't like him. Only ever met one person that had a motorbike that I didn't like, because you've always got something in common. You've always got something to talk about. And I love that. That's part of what you're doing, isn't it, really? You're capturing all of those different tribes.
At the end of the day, I'm a photographer, and I'm working on a story right now, a long-term story. It could be that one day I'm just done with this, and then I'm continuing a project I'm doing in India. But the motorcycle is very akin to a camera, that when I'm working in a foreign country and I have my camera, it's like a key, and it allows me into communities, and people will share their stories, which are often very intimate and private stories, and the motorcycle is a very similar tool. People will talk to you. They open up and they share these stories. These often very intimate and emotional stories that they don't necessarily share with their buddies at the office or whatever. They just don't get it. So that's kind of a really interesting privilege to be on the receiving end of those stories. I don't take that for granted. I really appreciate that.
You notice that on even quite a superficial level, don't you? When you're traveling, you'll pull into a car park somewhere with a view, and if you've been in your car, you get out and you take a picture, you get back in your car and drive away. Do it on a motorcycle, 100% likely to get into a conversation with someone. I stumbled across a picture today, Clive, 5 of us stopping at a lay-by in just outside Fort William in Scotland, and a load of Japanese tourists coming up to us and taking pictures of us and getting into a conversation with them. You'd never have got that stepping out of your car.
Unless you had a puppy.
My buddy actually makes a joke. He says he wants to have a bumper sticker for the bike that says, just because I have a motorcycle doesn't mean I want to talk to you. Sometimes I feel that way. Yeah.
Do a lot of people bring up the whole freedom thing? Because I hear it a lot, and I never really get it 100%.
USA.
Never heard it defined well. Have you ever heard a great definition of what that freedom actually means?
I mean, I've certainly heard it a lot. I think there's one of the things I hear that's associated with the freedom idea is that the bonds that connect them to their daily life are released. For safety, they can't be on the phone. They need to focus. They need to to stay alive, you need to focus, right? And there's a freedom in like clearing your mind and being accountable to yourself only. And I think that goes a ways to kind of explaining that idea of freedom. Nobody's fucking busting your balls like, I'll be home when I'm home, and yeah, you may have to check in with your partner or whatever, but there's going to be a window of time where like, that's it. Like you're on your own. Yeah. So I think that's the freedom of responsibility of, being tied to something. I think that's what they're saying. I think
you probably just hit the nail on the head as to why I've always struggled with it, because I've engineered a life for myself that has no stress.
You haven't fucking engineered it. You've inherited it. And David's got another project all about that. Fucking hell. Little Lord Fauntleroy.
I'm asking this on behalf of my girlfriend. It'll be her first question when she hears this. Who's going to look after the dog whilst you're away?
I have a woman who's like a dog sitter, she has a house and she takes dogs, but I have to pay her. It's a lot of money. Adds up.
And just one more dog, and she'll want to know exactly what kind of dog it is.
She's what I call a tennis ball retriever. Now she's right here. Maud, do you want to?
Hey!
Come here, Maud dog. Now she's like, no, I don't want to.
What if I make
This is Maud. She's probably a little back.
How can you leave that dog? Some kind of sidecar seems in order to put that little dog in.
So many people say that, but I would be beside myself if, like, God forbid anything happened on the dog.
So you have met some incredible people, including two of my favourite makers in Shinya Kumura and Maxwell Hayes, and blimey hell, how good are his bikes? Unbelievable. Met some loads and loads of other people in so many different walks of life, but and I'm sure they've all been fantastic. But who have you really enjoyed hanging out with? So
I met Walt Siegel. Do you know him?
Yeah.
Or his bikes? There's a guy called Paulo Rosas who's in my series. He had a company called Pagnol. They made beautiful leather jackets, beautiful leather like pants too. He kind of sponsored me because he was doing this thing where he wanted creatives. So he wanted to photograph creatives wearing his product. So he chose me as a photographer, and my buddy Noah did a very cool shot of me. And in exchange, he gave me a discount on the jacket, or maybe gave me for free, I can't remember. But I love the jacket. Great on the Thruxton, no good on the KTM. You just wear a fucking snowsuit on the KTM. Paulo was close with Walt Siegel. So he said, I was up in that area, he goes, hey, would you photograph Walt? And he goes, you know who Walt is? And this was like at the beginning for me. I didn't know anybody. I really knew nobody. And he's like, would you go shoot Walt in New Hampshire? I'm like, sure, whatever. And so I call Walt up and I say, Paulo wants me to do this photo of you, whatever. He's like, Walt could not have been nicer. He's like, absolutely, you'll come, you can stay at my house with my, my family and whatever, and shoot whatever you want. So I go, hey, can one of my buddies come? Because it's a drive from Brooklyn to New Hampshire. He's like, sure, no problem. So my buddy Dante came with me. Anyway, we go there, come into his shop, which is, how would you describe it? It's like it's right on a mill. So it's like on a river, where it had where the water would go. I walk in to his shop the first morning, and I love Formula One. Like I grew up, I'm a Formula One. I'd never really heard a motorcycle revving like the way I heard this. And he was working on this MV Agusta Bol d'Or that he was making for David Yurman, this big jewelry dude, to be like in the flagship store in Manhattan. Anyway, I walk in and all I hear is like, woo, 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 woo. And I was just like, the first time, I don't know if you go to Formula One races, but or whatever race it is, right? Like you're kind of like a moth to the flame. As soon as you hear it, you're like, you run like you're fucking spazzing out, right? And you have to plug your ear because it's like a ping going through your ear. Not modern day Formula One, but back in the day. And so Walt was wonderful. He was so nice. And I did all these shots, whatever. I thanked him and I left. And I was looking at the pictures and I went to Dante's family's house in Connecticut, so between New York and New Hampshire. And I was looking at the pictures and I was so unhappy with the pictures. I was just so bumming out. And I don't know, maybe I've only done this once or twice in my life where I called him up and I'm like, can I come back and shoot more because I'm so not happy with these pictures? He's like, sure, no problem. I'm bringing a bike from New York. I'll pick you up in the van. And he put my bike in his van and we went back to New Hampshire. And then I shot a bunch of great pictures. Like he was just so nice to me and he's been really helpful and stuff. So I think I enjoyed that because I felt like there was a connection. Max is nice, Shinya, super nice, Keo, unbelievably nice, but I didn't hang out for 2 days and get to know them. So anytime you can kind of hang out with people is always, in my experience, better to make that kind of human connection, which as a photographer, I'm always trying to get to.
Do you find there's a relationship between how famous somebody is as to how much time they're willing to give you or how nice they are, or is it just irrelevant?
I think it's kind of irrelevant. I've been trying to get to Lyle Lovett for a long time through all these ways, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't crack it. He's from Texas, and then I photographed Kevin Schwantz. I couldn't believe I was photographing Kevin Schwantz. I mean, I couldn't believe it. But even more than couldn't believe I was photographing Kevin Schwantz is that Wayne Rainey connected me to Kevin Schwantz. And if you know their history, the idea that they're friendly now is already a miracle, right? Mm-hmm. Kevin knew Lyle. And I said, look, I know you're friendly with Lyle. Do you think you could put in a good word? Anyway, I'm back. I'm in New Orleans or something. And the phone rings and I'm talking to my friend Wendy, who I know from New York and now lives in like Louisiana. And I go, oh, hold on. It's like a Texas phone number. And I answer, and the guy goes, hey, this is Lyle Lovett. And I'm like, hold on 1 second, Lyle. Wendy, I gotta go. He was super nice. Like he's a Grammy Award-winning musician. I think if I wanted to talk to him about music, he probably wouldn't have given a shit. But talking to him about bikes, you would think this guy runs a team. Like he is so...
There he is.
Lyle Lovett again.
Yeah, there he is. So he was so nice and so into talking about bikes. But yeah, everybody that I meet, because bikes are their passion, they start talking. They ask me before I get there, well, how long is this going to take? And I'm always like, oh, I don't know, like the photo, I'll be done in 10 minutes. I'll set it up so you just come in. And the interview, maybe 10 minutes. The whole thing, I'll be out. The whole thing could be done in a half an hour, right? Like that happened with Jay Leno's main guy. I was very cognizant of time. I ended up spending like 3 hours with the guy. Like everybody just keeps talking. And I'm like, this is awesome. This is so cool.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I tell him it'll take nothing, kind of feeling like, yeah, I'll be there all day. We'll probably have dinner.
What's your technique when you're shooting portraits? Are you talking to people as you're shooting?
It's the classic, like, make love to the camera, baby. Yeah. So sexy. Yes, yes. Well, give it to me. No, I'm not a big talker when I'm shooting. I try to identify a really great location or light. I talk a little bit. I try to keep people laughing or comfortable. I've been told I'm pretty funny, so I try to keep them laughing, and yeah, that's it. But I'm not like heavy on the direction. I'm like, oh, I'm pretty straightforward. I don't know.
And when you set out, you will have lived through the whole transparency 35mm. Does it still seem unbelievable to you what's happened?
I don't really believe in magic, but I do feel there's a magic when you would be in the tray and a picture would show itself. I was like, it's crazy to me. I understand intellectually what's happening, but I'm like a dum-dum. I don't know. How would they even figure that out? That's crazy. But I'm happy to not be working in film anymore. I don't really care. It's just as magical. I hate that word, but it's just as magical that it's coming on a sensor and it's on a computer. I mean, but it's all just a tool to me. I don't care what it is.
So I remember when I started taking pictures when I was a kid, and I suddenly had this sort of epiphany where I realized, crikey, I would always go and pick up my photographs from the developers, and I'd always imagine something amazing to come back. I always thought there'd be some transformation between the thing I took and then it coming back. And then I suddenly realized, no, what I see through the viewfinder is exactly what I'm going to get back when these things get developed. And so now I still spend a lot of time composing the shot in the viewfinder, not realizing that actually I should be taking sometimes a wider shot, that I can manipulate the image so much more than I could when I was shooting on 35mm film. And I still haven't completely got used to that. I still kind of feel, no, what I take on the day is what's going to come back from the developers. And it's not.
I admire that, to be honest. I always try to accomplish it in camera. I'm not a big retoucher. Like, I'll mess around a little bit. I'll clean up pimples and whatever. But I'm not like, oh, I'm going to, how AI is what's, blowing up right now. I'm very old school. Like, if I don't like to zoom in, I don't like to crop. I take it as a point of pride that I get it in the shot. And that's it. Like, even if I have to crop something and I'm, I can't believe I got to crop that out. Like, why wasn't I paying more attention? Was I rushed? Like, why did I miss that? I hate missing.
Why did I not get his chin?
Noel got upset with me yesterday for cropping out the bottom of one of his wheels on a photograph.
Dude, I just saw this thing on Photoshop. You could basically copy it and it will fill in that tire. Like, that's this new AI in a beta. You don't even need to shoot him. You could just AI him later.
Yeah, but Clive's always looked like my mum took them.
Is she really good at photography?
Your mum's Richard Avedon.
There we go.
I'm still not convinced that I've picked the right genre of motorcycling to indulge in. So what I'm saying is I'm very open-minded. I still don't know. I might be that Harley guy. I don't know yet. I haven't had a Harley yet.
You're not.
Are you happy with the genre of motorcycling that you've chosen? Or do you think you might be a secret cruiser guy?
I'm definitely not a cruiser guy. I've had the luxury of seeing incredible bikes and meeting these builders and seeing all these things. I'm like, oh my God, if I had the money, I'd buy that bike or buy that bike. Or, you know what I mean? Like, if I had the bread, I would buy a Walt Siegel Legero. I appreciate Max Hazen's bikes, but they're not practical to ride. They're unbelievable to see.
How much do they sell for?
I have no idea. Over 100K, I gotta believe.
A lot of them go straight into museums, don't they?
Or I think they're commissioned. Like, I don't think he's building one and then putting it up for sale. I think people are commissioning him to buy the bike, to make the bike. There's definitely a few bikes that I would love to have. First of all, I love my KTM. When I take off all the panniers and everything, like, fuck, this bike is fast, it's nimble, it's a gas to drive. It's really fun. Would I love a MV Super Leggero or a Super Veloce? Fuck yeah. They let me borrow one for my birthday a couple years ago in LA, and I was like, this bike is sick. I need to lose a few pounds. I'm like, it's like a little bit uncomfortable. I think that KTM, that adventure bike, is so versatile and so much fun to ride. I'm not like craving tons of bikes. Everybody says, you got to have more than one bike, but I don't know. Do you?
Yes.
A bunch of Enduros back there. They look like very similar bikes.
It's the same bike 6 times, apart from one of them.
Yeah.
Just like in different colors?
Yeah, they're spread across the ages. You're bringing your KTM to Ireland and you're going to Scotland on it. How long have you got to explore these wonderful isles?
I'm good. So I'm away the whole summer for 3 months. I'm going to be a month in basically Ireland, Scotland, and England. Then I'm going to cross into the continent. Is that what they call it in the business? The continent?
Yeah.
And go down maybe about as south as Porto. I've never been on the west side of France. I want to see like Normandy and Juneau and stuff like that, and then go towards Porto. And then I'm going to maybe go through the Pyrenees and get to, and if you guys want to ride with me, I'd love to have people to ride with. And then get to Barcelona. And then I'm going to go along the Côte d'Azur, like as you do. I keep saying my joke is like, of course, if I meet a princess, like the party stops and I become Monegasque. Like, I'll do what I have to do. You know what I mean?
You are going to have the time of your life, aren't you, on this trip?
Couple of questions, though. Have you heard of the Trans-Euro Trail?
Yeah, totally. I follow it. I'm I downloaded the app onto that app to my thing that's upside down.
Do you want to take a photograph of the guy that started the Trans-Euro Trail?
Yes, I do want to.
That is going to happen.
We'll make that happen.
I was talking to somebody about that the other day. I'm like, I wonder who started that. I'd love to photograph that guy.
Yeah.
He's a great
Oh,
character.
he's the loveliest man. Yeah, you'll really get on with him. Yeah.
Oh, cool. I'm stoked to meet. Thank you for that. Thank you for offering. I mean, that's how I build this project. It's like recommendations and referrals and stuff.
And there's also the ACT. So it's Adventure Country Tracks. There's a couple of people from Touratech started it. So it's similar in nature. We've got a podcast about it out the week after next. Have a listen to it. But it's basically they've designed tracks that you can ride in sort of 5 days, and they're big bike friendly tracks as well. So that might be something more suitable for the 790. And one more thing off the record. Motorcycle theft in Europe is really rife. So get a couple of good locks.
Outside of the cities, you're okay, I would say. But the KTM is a very stealable bike, unfortunately.
Yeah, if you're going into Barcelona, as you say, or London, definitely needs to be secured somewhere.
Yeah. And to be honest, like, I don't really want to spend a lot of time in big cities. It's like, I've been to big cities. They're all the same. They have shitty traffic. It's going to be hot as balls. It doesn't really appeal to me to be stuck in Rome, like, or, if I have friends and they can store my bike, then I'm more inclined to give it a whirl. But if I don't, I'm just like, I'm going to just shine that city up.
I'm such a world traveler. I've just returned from the Pyrenees, and and
that means wanker, by the way, if you're unfamiliar with the.
We were riding mainly Trans-Euro trail tracks, but we had some ACT tracks as well. You could tell within 100 meters of getting onto an ACT track that it was an ACT track.
Versus a Trans-Euro trail.
Yeah. Just the level of it was just a smoother sort of gravel road, like graded road, whereas a lot of the Trans-Euro trail stuff is it's not really difficult. It's certainly big bike friendly, but it's just that bit smoother on the ACTs. They were fantastic routes, by the way. They were so good.
That's cool. Is there an app that you could download that has the maps for the ACT, or just tracks or whatever?
Yeah, they've got a website that you sign up to. It's called just adventurecountrytracks.com, and I think you pay €11. So, $10 or whatever. And then you can download all of the GPX files, which obviously you can run on your Carpe Eater.
So are you camping a little bit on this trip? Or is it?
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, it's always dependent on weather, right? Like if it's 100 degrees, it's kind of hard to want to fucking set up a tent when you're sweating your nuts off and you've been on the bike for 7 hours or whatever. Then you kind of just want to. That's what my problem was in the US and Canada. It was so hot. Basically, from the moment I left LA until I got to Nova Scotia, it was just like kind of unbearable. I just didn't camp that often. But when I got into Canada and into, Nova Scotia and Newfoundland and up, then it became a little bit more possible to camp. But yeah, I mean, I certainly hope to camp. I don't know what the camp setup is. I use the iOverlander and just like find some place to jump off the beaten path or whatever. And hopefully not get shot.
Scotland, you can pretty much camp anywhere as long as you're not in somebody's garden. Heat-wise, you're not going to have a problem in Northern Europe, that's for sure.
Yeah, I also hope it's not too cold, right? It's like that fine line, you don't freeze your nuts off. You want to keep your nuts comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always said that.
No, the weather's great here at the moment, actually. It's been really warm, so it'll be good.
When you get into Europe, it's going to be scorchio.
I mean, it's always France you read about that the old people are dying every summer, right? There's all the stress that I'm going through right now, even like learning technical things. Like I got an Insta360 camera. Normally, I would get that, I'd pull it out of the box, I would be figuring it out. I got it a week ago, I haven't even fucking turned it on. That's how much other shit I have ahead of it. That Carpe Eater thing, I'm completely overwhelmed about it because I'm an Apple guy and it's Android, and it's upside down. I just wished it would like turn it on the street and just work like Apple does. I feel like it will, but so there's all these things that I got to learn. But once I get on the plane, like even I've been, I want to Airbnb my house. So I'm getting it super clean and I put it up and like, there's all these like things that I'm trying to accomplish because it's not a cheap date doing this trip. I'm trying to like offset earning money elsewhere, and it means I have to just get everything sorted. And it's just like a lot. I've traveled a lot in my life. This is definitely the biggest challenge organizationally to put together. It's been taxing. It's been taxing.
But as soon as you start, your wheels turn on the first road in Dublin, you'll be like...
Yeah, once, there's things you can't control, right? So as long as I'm in control of doing this, and, and I have some people helping me out when I'm gone, once I get there, I got an Airbnb for the first 2 nights in Dublin just because, you kind of discombobulated. And then we'll see what the scuttlebutt is.
You'll love Ireland. Are you going to the ABR, Noel?
I don't have a ticket. They haven't reached out to me yet, Clive.
How would you describe it? I've been told different things. I've been told it's like it's kind of amazing. It's huge, but it's also almost sounds like a motorcycle show. Like all the brands are there, and it's like a big sales push. Is that kind of accurate too?
Yeah, both of those things are true. It's 10,000 people. It's in like an old country estate in the Midlands, near from where I'm from. Really, it's not that big. I mean, it's still manageable. You can walk around the whole thing.
The actual exhibition tents and the centre of it is very small. The spectacle of it is really like Clive says, the number of people that are there. As soon as you get there, all you hear is just bikes everywhere, just this roar of motorcycles. So that for me is the most exciting part. It's just the number of bikes there. I think you'll have a great time just wandering around. My favorite thing is to get up at 6 a.m. and just wander around and just see the array of different bikes there and everybody's different setups.
And is it predominantly adventure bikes? Like
all adventure bikes, yeah.
They have a couple of loops as well you can go and ride around, so people will jump on their bikes and go and do a couple of loops and then come back and do something else. No, it's great. And they have bands on, and they tend to have covers bands on as well.
Yeah, I saw they're going to have like an English beat cover band or whatever.
Yeah, and it's like, you think it's a bit naff, but actually it's actually quite good fun because you get to hear music that you know, and yeah, it's all good.
Yeah.
But aside from what you've got going on, which is exciting, I think just from a photographer's point of view, you'll just find it absolutely fantastic fun wandering around, seeing it. Yeah, it'd be incredible. Do you ever get that on Instagram where people just appear, all of a sudden you think, I've got 50 likes from nowhere, and then you look and it's the same person and they've gone right back through your account and spent a whole evening finding things and liking them.
Deep, but I've had certainly like a bunch of the, you know, I photographed this woman, Jamie Nelson, this photographer. I don't know if you saw the pink shot, like very like sexy. And she's got like 200,000 followers on Instagram. We did this little video and she posted, you know, like at the David Goldman, you know, spent the day with David Goldman, blah, blah, blah. And suddenly I got like a lot, like big bump, you know, in follows and likes and stuff. But the joke that I always make, and my friends joke, like, I never photograph beautiful women. I photograph like old dudes, you know? So the odd time when I photograph a beautiful woman, then it's like, I mean, that's really the secret. I just photograph more beautiful women, you'll get more likes. Yeah. All right. Well, it's super nice talking to you guys. I'm stoked to meet you in I don't know, like a few weeks, really.
Yeah, we'll see you. Yeah.
Thank you. See you later.
Bye.
What an excellent bloke. It's great to actually meet somebody that swears more than I do. Kudos. I hope you enjoyed that. We really did enjoy meeting David, and hopefully we're going to meet up, if not before, at the ABR and spend some proper time with him. If you have any contacts for the people David mentioned, like Harry's Garage or Clive Paget, I think were two of the people who mentioned, let us know, drop us a private message and we'll forward your details on to David. Don't forget to have a look at themotorcycleportraits.net. Spend some quality time listening to the audio behind them as well. David's also on Instagram, the David Goldman photo, all one word, under David Goldman. Right, this may or may not be the last podcast before ABR, but I'm going to be there. Noel's not going to be there. Should I tell you why? I'll tell you why in another podcast. But yeah, if you see me, come and say hello. Be delighted to meet you. Might have some stickers in my pocket to give away. Awesome. Love you. See you next time. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate your support. Don't forget you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you really appreciate what we do, you could consider supporting us on Patreon or buy us a coffee. Links are available on our website, which is tampodcast.com, tampodcast.com, where we also have a limited selection of branded stuff. But either way, please keep listening and spreading the word. See you next time.